Combs, this is his return, and he was here from 2012 to 2017 and was gone for 2018 and 2019 as the defensive backs coach at Tennessee. And when he talked about this, he brought so much more knowledge of coaching back to Ohio State. And it reminds me of Ryan Day coming from the NFL, where he was in college, then he went to the NFL and just learned so much more about coaching and so much more about football. And look at Jeff Hafley last year, came to Ohio State with all of this NFL knowledge, and Kerry Combs has done the same thing. And then I've thought about this in the past. You remember when Charlie Weiss came to Notre Dame from New England and said, I've come from the NFL. Notre Dame will have a decided schematic advantage. And, of course, they did not. But it's sort of like that, but it worked last year. It's worked with Ryan Day. And Kerry Combs has talked about, how much more he has to offer. And this was a guy who has already given plenty to Ohio State. So we'll see what more he has to give. And you're replacing 3 starters in the secondary. So whatever he has, Ohio State needs it right away.
I was very energized, obviously, like everybody else was, to see Kerry Combs there. And what he said was, in their time with the Tennessee Titans, he labeled Mike Vrabel one of the great defensive minds of our day, which I thought was interesting. And then also Dean Pease, former Kent State head coach. He's bounced around to a lot of different NFL teams. I think he just retired going out, in the Final Four with the Tennessee Titans. I think he's in his 60s as well, Dean Pease, and he, has been well known as a defensive guru. And I think that Kerry Combs went down there and was a sponge and absorbed a lot of that information from those guys and a lot of different things. As he said, they played every coverage known to man. They played every kind of defensive look known to man. And, they were outstanding, obviously, in getting to the AFC Championship, beating New England. That was the pupil beating the teacher, with Mike Vrabel beating his longtime head coach, Bill Belichick. And so, props to Tennessee for what they accomplished. And I think Kerry Combs, just 2 years there, but still much better for that experience. And the way it sounds, our Dave Biddle, who I work with at Bucknuts, asked the question, who's going to make the calls on defense? And Coach Day said it'll once again be a collaborative effort, but Kerry Combs is the coordinator. We'll have the final say, so that's kind of interesting. Greg Madison and Jeff Hafley had those roles this past year. Madison returning, Hafley going on to Boston College, creating the opening that Kerry Combs is filling. Kerry Combs said it was interesting to come back and see the faces of the players. There's guys like Amir Reep. I can remember he recruited Amir Reep, years ago, and may have been there for his first year. I don't know. I don't have everybody's years and everything in front of me, but the seniors would have certainly worked with him back in 2016 before he left. So, or 2017, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Again, the years are all running together, but I think that he said that it was great to see those kids and thinks that there is tremendous talent there. And along the lines with what Tony said, they'll see who can play outside, who can play inside, who can play safety. And their plan right now is to stay with the one high safety look. Jordan Fuller was the safety this past year. Probably Proctor has got the odds on to replace him. And go with 3 corners, and then go from there in terms of if they've got to switch out a different look for a different offense or down and distance or whatever it may be. But I think you got to be excited to think that there's going to be continuity. And Kerry Combs said he's taking the time to learn Ohio State's terminology, which you would think a coordinator would come in and say, okay, this is how we're going to do this. But he's the one. He's not going to make the 40 defensive players and 4 or 5 other coaches change to his way of thinking. They're going to ingratiate or mesh everything together and get it all so that they're all speaking the same language. I thought that was good.
He also said he didn't demand or require the coordinator tag, and he just wanted to come back to Ohio State. but I'm sure the $500,000 bump in salary didn't hurt.
I'll throw in, just trying to segue to Corey Dennis, the new quarterbacks coach. I looked up a little bit about his bio. He played at Georgia Tech and was done there in 2014 and graduated with a degree in business administration. Came to Ohio State, obviously working for his future father-in-law at that time, Urban Meyer, and of course was engaged to his daughter, Nikki. They've obviously since married and had 2 children. And, he was headed to Colorado State to go work for Steve Adazio on that staff out there, but was never introduced because I think the situation with Mike Yursich kind of came into focus in mid-December, that he was probably going to leave to go to Texas. And so they kind of belayed that Corey Dennis departure and waited until January until all the I's are dotted, the T's were crossed, and made him the new quarterbacks coach. And you know that Shelley Meyer and the whole Meyer family's got to be very happy about this, because her daughter and grandkids aren't moving to where is Colorado State? Fort Collins, Colorado, which is 2 flights and a drive to get there from Columbus, unless you have your own plane. So, at any rate, he was grilled. Doug LeMaurice from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com, put him on the grill and grilled him. And here's Corey Dennis, 27 years old, and he's getting the opportunity of a lifetime, although he's been the right-hand man for Ryan Day the last 3 years and was the quarterbacks coach for the preseason last year when Day served as the acting head coach during Urban Meyer's suspension. And so he asked him, he said, do you think you'd have this opportunity if you weren't Urban Meyer's son-in-law? And Corey Dennis, to his credit, I think a lot of people put in that spot would have kind of blanched at that question, but he kind of handled it with very good grace and said, I think I would have been up for an opportunity somewhere, doing something on my own merits. And just the fact that I've been here and really what gives him his bona fides is you've got guys like JT Barrett, Joe Burrow, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, et cetera, all the guys he worked with that have gone to bat for him and said, yeah, this is our guy. This is the guy who needs this job. This is the guy who should have this job. And so there isn't any pushback from anybody on him taking over that job. But he was put on the spot, no question about it. Were you, with that in a manner of speaking, are you here because of nepotism? And he doesn't seem to think that he is. Certainly got his foot in the door because of that, but getting your foot in the door and earning the job are 2 different things. And I think Ryan Day is certainly a find that he earned that job.
Well, show me a coach who didn't get a job, because of a good words from a mentor or something like that. Yeah. Show me one guy who hasn't had that happen, and I'll show you a guy with no friends, and had to do it on his own because nobody would vouch for him. And that's every coach, even going to Colorado State with Steve Adazio. Steve Adazio is Urban Meyer's guy. And as Corey Dennis said, Ryan Day wouldn't hire me if he didn't. He's not going to do it as a favor to Urban Meyer. If he didn't think that Corey Dennis could do the job, he wouldn't hire him. It is the most important position in sports. Let's not forget that. So, Jim Tressel we could go back to the Jim Tressel, Nick Siciliano years and maybe make some statements there, but we don't need to revisit that. But yeah, it's as much as Ryan Day values the position, that's his baby, and Ohio State is bringing in some talented quarterbacks. You need a talented coach, but again, it also goes back to stability and continuity, and Ryan Day has that with Corey Dennis.